next up is going to be Noah Intelligence, also known as Unleashed. This is a young team out of Central Florida, and I'm gonna before I hand it over to Pablo, I'll just say that I think the thing that really sets them apart is sort of this context of a promptless query with regard to sort of massively integrated agents, and I guess bringing you sort of real-time information in a promptless state. So kind of as things are happening, it's directing you in a way in which kind of the system is working for you is the way I would kind of think about it. But with that, let me just stop sharing there and hand it over to Pablo Vasquez from Orlando to take us through the demo of NOAA Intelligence.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction, Tim. Let me see if you guys can see my screen. Hold on. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. So hold on. So I'll click present. Decline right now. And then, all right, awesome. So first I want to say thank you to my team that's here. We've worked really hard for this past 10 weeks. We're frankly like a newer company, right? This division of Unleashed, how Tim said it, NOAA Intelligence, we opened up like 3 and 4 months ago. So it's been a discovery process for the most part this past 10 weeks. And I really want to say thank you to also all the Confluent team. It feels more like a family from Sahana to Tim to Minge. Everyone's been really nice to us and helping us a lot throughout the process. So kind of going along with what Tim said, what I'm going to present to you is what I honestly believe is going to be the future of how we interact with artificial intelligence in our entire digital world, or more like how they interact with us, right? And for that, I'm going to go over who we are, what we've done, and what our future looks like. It's always really hard in tech to explain what you do. So I get asked all the time, like, what does NOAA do? When we first started, it used to take me about an hour to explain. Then it took me 30 minutes. Then it took me 5 minutes. Then a minute, finally. And I think now we can explain it in under 10 seconds. What we think NOAA is a promptless contextual intelligence companion, meaning that it automatically surfaces issues and opportunities you can't see for your entire organization for effortless decision. That's really our promise with this whole product is we want to make sure the users have effortless decisions, right? Now, since this is a demo and it's supposed to be more technical rather than more marketing, the what or how we get to that result is really interesting and I think is the coolest part of this whole product. We use an ML and AI co-design data pipeline, kind of like Tim was saying. We scan and we have producers for every app, anything that can produce data we can connect to. Then we move it over to topics, right? So we're split it into these sort of like rivers of data in which then utilizing Flink, we can detect anomalies in this particular topic. Now, that's just the first part of this whole process. Our next part is what makes NOAA really powerful, in which we grab the different anomalies that we find in each stream and we analyze them together, right? Because we understand that things are correlated, right? Nothing happens in isolation. So we'll grab all these different anomalies and analyze them together to create high-level events, then an agentic stack can resolve in 5 steps, and then deliver over to a user in a beautiful UI in which they'll be guided to take action. And not just like any action, have the how, the why, the what, the where, and why. And we're going to see that in the UI demo, right? Now, you see this architecture. It looks kind of simple, but it was quite a challenge to get to it and then also test it. And I'm a person that likes challenges a lot. I'm a long-distance runner, and I really like things for a long term. But in this project, we had to learn how to sprint. And we split our sprints into 4 different mini sprints, right, across 10 weeks. In which in the first stage, for the first 2 weeks, we first try to really knock down what the architecture was, what we're trying to do. Because for us, it was more of a concept when we first started. And we knew we wanted to deliver this sort of like promptless intelligence, but we didn't know how we're going to get to it. So the first 2 weeks, we really just sat down and had a lot of conversations on how we're going to get to it. The second part is, how we're going to test it, right? So then that second sprint looked more like we're going to come up with some sort of like fake company, gather fake data. So we create like a fake Walmart in order to test it. And then what we spend most of our time in is stage number 3, in which we've independently tested each one of our components in a stack that I mentioned previously, the UI, Kafka and Flink, the ML inference, and the agentic layer with mockups, just so we understand what their behavior was. And where we are right now, and we're still doing it, is sort of hooking up these things together to understand how they interact with each other, and so we can do some sort of like behavior evaluation. throughout this whole process, right? It's been really cool to see all of it come together, but we faced a lot of challenges. And mainly we faced three challenges, right? Which I'm gonna go over really briefly, but I think we're trying to come up with some sort of like a statement of challenges. So we split into different threes because we really faced a lot of challenges. But for the first one and the biggest one that we, you know, found ourselves in was how do we develop a model that's able to analyze these different anomalies, right? And they're again produced by topics in Flink, right? So that was the big challenge that we're still working on. When we get to the solutions, we'll explain how we solve that one. The second one was Flink and Kafka streaming infrastructure. We battled through some of the documentation. I know at some point Sean came in and helped, and Bentley, who's our more technical CTO, he's been awesome at working around some of the problems with Flink and Kafka. And also sort of a big problem we face too is we have a lot of custom producers and consumers. So how to host those within Confluent Cloud, you really can't do it in a managed runtime. You have to deploy them somewhere else. So that was one of the main challenges we also faced. And then another thing, and probably the one that we worked on the most, was the agency stack latency and unpredictability challenge, right? Sometimes the agent sometimes the agent timeout on Kafka times limits. And so it's kind of inconsistent to test out. And also, like anyone that's worked with LLMs, predicting the output based on the prompts you give it is also a big part of our challenge, right? Even throughout these whole challenges, we've been able to come up with some really cool solutions and I would say wins, right? And it's what I'm going to show right now. So on your left, you'll have sort of like what we've done on Confluent Cloud. And on your right, you'll have a local deployment of our agent that is analyzed and that is being streamed over from Kafka and Flink over, and you'll see it resolved. Now, same as true as it for the three challenges, we had three really big wins, right? The first one is we really got a good grasp of how Confluent Cloud works and what our limitations are. So now we're able to stream data, split it into different topics, and then perform preliminary anomaly detection, which is ML ready and it's ready for our downstream intelligence. The second one is we're currently still designing an RC regression based ML model that's able to graph, which is the reason we're going with this model, by the way, is because it's low cost, right? You could just throw these anomalies independently over to an agent, but it'll cost you more money to do that than having analyzed it to bigger events, which will take less runs on the agent. Now, for that one, we're still testing it out and seeing how we're able to graph these different anomalies getting outputted by Flink and Confluent Cloud, and then cross-reference in a larger data set, which we'll host in Databricks and use MLflow for that. And then the third operational result, which is the most exciting one for me, is we're actually able to grab some of these fake data and this fake Flink, not fake Flink drops, but from the fake data, the Flink drops that we're able to operate and the anomalies we're able to detect and actually come up with some really neat conclusions. I mean, through a 5-step process, and I'll show the results in a second, we're able to come up with what's going on, why is it going on, a confidence score, and many other things. So now what I'm going to do is actually show you the text results. This is a demo of what the output of the agent is. So you'll see, if I'm the anomaly across 5 different services, including superior quality, logistic delay, campaign fatigue, return issues, and more. It gives evidence, the confidence it has, and hypothesis, right? And I'll expand on it as it goes. We want to make sure we have all this data from our end so then we can test out our models and our agentic stack and keep improving, right? But for the user part, which is the part that excites me the most, is we built a really beautiful UI, which I'll show right here. That's, let me move this over here. That is how we interact with the user. Because what we really know is like the tech is really cool, but at the end of the day, what we worry about is the end user. So after all that happens, it will land in a page that will look something like this. And you'll expand, and it'll give you the evidence of the where, how, when, why of something that happened. And it also asks you to consider approach and any agentic action that you might want to take. Not only that, but we'll do it with multiple events. And we'll also be able to do it by section and by apps. So you'll see something like this. You'll go over to messages. You'll see all the messages that are happening. These are examples that we drew from our pipelines. And you'll also be able to do it by apps to see what NetSuite is saying, what Salesforce is saying, what Sendex is saying. So really what we want to do is change the experience of how we interact with technology. I'm going to switch over back to my slides. So for the future for us, what it really looks like, right? And I want to first, hold on, my bad. I want to say thank you to Confluent again, because there's been a lot of help from Confluence and to bring this to life. But what we want to do at the end of the day is bring promptless intelligence to every enterprise and human, right? It has to be frictionless. It has to be intuitive. It has to be personal. And we want to simplify the context of every app and fulfill a promise for effortless decisions. But we're going to do our next steps for our next couple of weeks. It's actually, we're starting to gather different enterprises that want to implement this in a pioneer program. We're going to test it out with them and then release it to the world. Sort of our next steps in terms of development, though, is going to be, like you saw in the previous graph, integrating some of these isolated components like the Kafka and the machine learning model and the UI, integrate it all together to really set out to these enterprise accounts we'll have in our Pioneer program.